Hey you guys, it's MJ. How are you? I felt inspired to talk about the divide and conquer energy today and how the divide conquer energy stream, I suppose, is really representative or symbolic or the reflection of our own conflicted self. The fact that within our own selves we feel separate from the source that we are. We feel disconnected from the truth of our knowing. We're afraid. We're afraid of our power. We're afraid of our strength in consciousness. And so that divide conquer energy often can feel just like it's taking over the world and like there's no hope in us changing or the world's getting worse. And often that's what's happening. I think that's what, intuitively I feel anyway, that's what is occurring from within self, is that because more and more beings are here for the awakening and the healing, we're healing the core wound of separation. And the core wound of separation is ultimately the depth of our own self-betrayal. The moment we denied our own self. Maybe we did it multiple times. Maybe we betrayed our own self multiple times. Maybe we betrayed our own heart multiple times. So if we have acted out in that way against our own self, then that is always what we're healing, is the wound of our own fear, our own veiled separation. And ultimately, whether we're in our own pain, whether we're choosing to focus on someone else's pain, whether we're like fixated on how insane and horrible and painful the world is, that is all representative of the divide and conquer energy. So recognize that everything we perceive as external is always going to be representative of something within ourselves. And also recognize the energy or how we buy into people's words and stories, which actually perpetuate, even though they might, it's never what it appears, right? And I'm amazed at how people's victimhood stories can actually create more divide and conquer. That through our own victimhood, we actually blame and attack and then paint a picture of somebody like they're a horrible human being, and that's not, or painting a picture of their own victimhood, which of course makes the other person seem like a perpetrator, but it's not the truth of the situation. And everything gets kind of distorted when we're just focusing on how wounded, when we're focusing on everyone else, when we just focus on what they need to do or how they need to fix their world or what their problem is. But anytime we're externally focused, we're not actually connected to our own source. So we're not connected to our own joyful expansion. We're focused on the pain of the world, which is our own fear, right? So integrating our experience, and that's my practice ultimately, every time there's like a big shift, which often comes in the form of intense conversation, often comes in the form of people leaving or people telling me they don't want anything to do with me anymore. And then off the back of that, there for me is always an integration process where I bring the entire situation into my energy field and make peace with it. And know that every being is in their divine course, is on their divine path, and their choosing is their choice. And I respect people to allow them to make that choice. And then continue to work on myself, continue to yoke the positive, empowered choices of my own expansion. That's the work we can't do for one another. And if someone chooses to be a victim, that's their choice. But any of us could choose victimhood. Any of us could pretend like life is really sad, or that because this person did that, I'm forever gonna be sad or something. And that's, when we're eternally connected, I mean, that's someone's choice. But there again, we have a choice whether or not we really want to buy into that, And life is paradoxical and life is bittersweet, but I gotta say again, I've said it before, but I am thankful and amazed at how awesome my life is and how in the flow it is, like how much energy I have, how strong and independent I feel, and how capable I am of saying no when it comes to people wanting me to join them in their pain or wanting me to join them in their sadness when I know that's not my job necessarily, you know. And because there are people who genuinely want to change, there are people who genuinely want to do the work, and it's really easy for us to sit around and talk about other people like they're this or they're that when we don't really know the story. And especially when there's been a bit of energy sort of exchange, and then we don't know the full story, but we choose to buy into the story of one person to the detriment of the other. So we get together, we talk about that other person with this person, doing such a holy service, but all you're doing is creating something that isn't real. You're creating a story about someone that is just your story about that person. Unless we're talking to that person, unless we're actually, you know, showing up for that person that we're talking about, that's not really showing up. If anything, there's a game going on, and that's creating more divide and conquer. It's observing, you know, how we can easily buy into someone's story to the point of demonizing someone else, demonizing someone else's story because this person is so sad because you were such a mean person for doing this. like like we're not all creating it together, like we're all not responsible for it together. And yet my teaching is that we're not responsible for one another's pain. And I have compassion for people, but I am no longer tolerating people's victimhood because I've had to consciously work through mine, and I teach people how to consciously work through theirs. But if they have no respect for me, or if they're just going to think that I'm a horrible human being and perpetuate that they're the victim, always the victim in the situation, it's really difficult to work with that energy because it becomes a drain. It becomes like a drain of your resources because you're the one constantly having to work. You're the one constantly having to show up. And people might talk like they want to show up, but they don't. So be really aware of people's words misaligning with their actions. And also taking a second look, or maybe going a little bit deeper as to why somebody does something, or why you feel the way you feel, or why you feel it's necessary to get involved. Divide and conquer is an energy from within self. It's the energy of separation and fear. And the only way we can heal that divide and conquer energy outside of us in the world program is to actually heal our own separation wounds. But if we're still choosing sides and having to tell one person this and then do that person, and this person's a mean person, whatever, if we're still doing that, we're still in our wounding, essentially. And this is the big leap, you guys, is that I express myself and vent myself in the present moment. I don't hold on to things, but I keep showing up for my life because my life right now is the most important thing. I'm the one who I live and die with. So at this point, at 36, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going back into my patterns of people pleasing. I'm not going back into my patterns of hoping and maybe what some guy or some person is going to help me or make my life better, when actually they just want me to do their bidding. They just want me to do what they want me to do. And when I don't, they choose a rejection path because they feel rejected in themselves. Ultimately, they are deeply wounded and abandoned. But again, it's not our responsibility. Each and every one of us, myself included, have been wounded beyond fucking intensity, and I was the only one who could bring myself up because at that time people just wanted me to keep drinking and keep partying and keep carrying on like them, and I couldn't. It was killing me. So I had to break free. And there again, you know, you sometimes you lose friends when you change. Sometimes you lose friends because you vibrate in a different way. That's all. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just preference. It's vibration. Vibration and the human consciousness are just energy itself isn't judgmental. That's us. Judgment is like a way that we either fix reality or expand reality out. And like ultimately the human mind, because it's been disconnected for so long, is really judgmental because it's not connected to itself, so it has to compartmentalize everything outside. Once you're connected to yourself, you don't really worry about the external world. You just flow and in curiosity and awe of this incredible experience, you know? And I can really feel the difference. It's like unity. Consciousness is oneness with all in divine flow. So even the apparent huffles are dynamic course redirectors. If there are people that aren't meant to be with us for this next phase, that your higher self will find a way to release them, and then your healing journey from that release is part of the next phase, you know. And for me, it's amplifying, it's building momentum, and no one and no thing is gonna tell me I'm wrong or I'm horrible for empowering myself to choose my own desires. And especially when me choosing my desires, they're not hurting anybody. You know, if my intuitive connection triggers someone's emotional response, that's their pain body, that's their own healing journey. They are the ones who have to go through it. Happened to me today because I was not resonating. I told their idea no way for me. They released me from helping their project. Wonderful. Congratulations. Same. I've had more purgings and more releases of, yeah, for whatever reason, people wanting nothing to do with me, wanting nothing to do with what I do because I'm not in alignment with love, apparently. So, and that's a choice. If I feel love in my heart, I can't force everyone else to be like, but you must feel the love in my heart. Feel the love in my heart, everyone. I'm like, I can't make people feel. If they choose to perceive me as something I'm not, I can't. You have to walk away because it's just painful. And it's wildly uncomfortable when someone's projecting their pain onto you. They made it seem like it was my fault. Oh, yeah, you know, Rochelle, but only when I use words to explain. The thing is, when it comes to those active pain bodies, there's no point in even talking about it. And people will want, the pain body will want, like the other person will be like, yeah, how dare you? Or you're going to be sad and whatever. You're going to just die a lonely blah, blah, blah. And they'll want you to keep fighting with them. And you're just like, no, because I'm not fighting anymore. And if you want to fight with me, or if you want to try to drag me back into a situation that I consciously chose to exit, no, just no, you know. And that's when our only responsibility is to come back to self and stay focused on your own joyful expansion. And the maze and illusion of life, I think, is fascinating because we will set up situations, right? Amen. Amen to you, Rochelle. We will create pretty intense situations, right? Situations where we're in the moment thinking, what? This person? Or why that? Or how is this happening? Or like, how? This is where, and again, for the empath, it's like when you start working it out logically and you're like, but wait a minute, what did I actually do? And you're looking at the reality being like, but now, and they're making, what have I actually done? And it doesn't matter. The point is, when we own our own creation, we can choose. I can choose to be around someone, and to be honest, if it don't serve me, it don't serve me, and I'm allowed to walk away from something that doesn't serve me. And that is the power of the divide and conquer energy, because it's everywhere. Because everyone's all conflicted, and everyone's running around trying to fix this or talking about this and saying one thing and doing another thing, and we all do it. Oh, well, and again, when it gets when we're pretty rested in our rest in peace state, and then engage with people's energy, and it starts to get all like, wait, what's happening? And why are you, because this is where the spiritual lingo can be highly like messy, as in, we're saying, oh no, and I'm here and we're healing and this and that, but that's not actually what's happening. What's happening is a battle of the ego. What's happening is distorted patterns rising up to try to feed them, you know? Mind, perceive, heart leads. Yeah. And then the mind disconnected from the heart destroys its host. Right? The mind, it's like this war mind. This mind that when it doesn't have a heart, when it's not connected to the heart, destroys, like the mind of humanity is destroying the planet. The heart is destroying its host. It destroys its own home. So mind believes, heart relieves. So yeah, so once we connect to the heart, the mind relaxes. And ultimately, the mind becomes well. The mind becomes aligned. In my experience, and this is why I do what I do, it's not a quick fix, and it's not obvious, and it's not necessarily I don't know exactly how to make it work for you, but I've shared my process with you guys. It's been years and years of just owning and transforming my own emotions and believing in myself and believing that I can be happy and believing that I can be free and believing that I can make money in this world, doing what I love, shining my light and showing up. And here I am, living the life that I always dreamed of living, and no one at this point can bring me back to the darkness. No one at this point, no matter how good they think their intentions are. I can feel the energy of divide and conquer. And I recently had an experience where, and this is again going back to the spiritual lingo of people just keep attacking one another, even though they say it's this or that. And I could feel the energy rising up within me at one aspect of like projection. And then the other aspect was actually like just my own like higher self, inner self, just being like, I am, yes, oh, Rochelle, that's nice. It was like higher self just being like, no, not the wound, not the trigger, the divine power within me saying, no, you're not taking me back there. I am not here to serve white privilege. I am not here to serve the patriarchy, and to feel sorry and pitiful for people of privilege. That's not my job. My job is really to empower myself and awaken myself so that I can continue to empower and awaken more and more people, because that's what's happening in my reality. And there are people who have been in closer proximity to me who would prefer I just stayed in close proximity to them and would prefer that I just do what they want. But what I recognize is they're in fear and they have a lot of energetic density to work through in their own lives. And in my divine path, it's not my job. They're on a divine path as well. Every single one of us, no matter how good or bad or right or wrong our lives look, we are every single one of us on a divine awakening path. How we choose to move through it is our own divine choice. For us to be, trying to dictate to one another what we should be doing and where we should be going, and if we don't do your bidding, then you're going to end up, that's just our ego. For my growth also. I get you, Rochelle, because in a way I feel you, like it's the same, I would say. I just know, for me, I just know that there can be wild distortion in that. So for some people, that is where they sit right now. And we are all in service to other. And I would say to you, beautiful. Again, like you just said, just not to your detriment. If we're serving others to like, I'm of service. I'm like the martyrdom vibes, like I'm of service. I'm just gonna be of service, but I'm gonna be a victim in service. That's not fucking in service. That's just victimhood, really, and pain and denial. We want to serve by doing the stuff that makes us feel good. And a lot of us, it feels good to make people feel good, right? What the trick there is that if we're exhausting ourselves and someone's perpetually relying on us to make them feel good and they're not doing any of the inner work. Did you? You got a t-shirt. Nice. And they're not doing the inner work, eventually, for those of us around those people, it will become toxic. It will become deeply, deeply troublesome because we're constantly having to keep giving and giving and giving to someone who's not giving to themselves in that same way, and codependency, depending on other people to give them their fix, to make them feel better, make them feel totally okay about all of their behavior when some of it's probably not that great, or some of it probably doesn't serve them in their lives, and yet they don't want to change. And that's okay. That's the thing for me. I'm like, for me, it's just makes more sense to walk away because it hurts otherwise, But that, every shape shift we take, every move we make in our own reality is shifting us. Yeah, right? I see that. And I see it a lot in those healing communities, and the kind of where we just kind of go round. And that was a big shift for me in the last sort of 2011 to 20, since I really got into the yoga and then go deeper and deeper into these different healing communities and spiritual communities. And I remember, again, after quite a few years, dibble dabbling in different communities, popping out the other side. I know, me too. I literally did though, chica. I literally heard it come through. Yeah, I popped out the other side because then there was like this deeper call in me that was like, but I also just want to be able to be free and happy. Like at some point I just also want to be free, happy, and live my life and not have to be perpetually healing my toxicity because I'm such a disgusting human being, right? At some point when you actually transform enough of your density, there isn't that density there. You're just free, you're just happy, you're just manifesting your life. And once you get to that point, you want to keep going. So there again becomes a stark contrast. Once you've worked through enough of your own shit, you can just live your life an empowered human being and enjoy it. And your service is beyond awesome. Your service continues to help people lots and everywhere all over the world. But then again, that becomes a contrast of you can either go back into codependency where you're hooking in and they're hooking into you and you're all living in your da-da-da-da-da. Usually, you know, either talking about way out there stuff that doesn't have much practical application to living in this world, or just talking about how sad life is and how poor people are, how shitty people are, this, that, the other. So we polarize those two extremes, but both are disempowered ultimately because you're not in truth, you're not in the moment, you're not living the divine expression of who you know you desire to be. So it's really easy to target people who are. It's really easy to target the people. And that's, again, divide and conquer. Let's just blame this person. Let's make it this person's fault. Let's blame her over there for why you feel sad. And then you and I can feel better about ourselves because we're making her out to be the bad guy here. And then I have helped thousands, but one person at a time. One then helps five helps 10 more. Exactly. There's patience for us, right? And this commitment, like this stuff isn't a quick fix. This isn't like I just started doing yoga and 2 weeks later I'm feeling fantastic. I've been doing yoga diligently for over 10 years now, since I was 222. Dude, it's early. Ooh, 220, the 2-2 numbers have been coming up loads for me as well. It's like an amplification, it feels like. So yeah, I think that's it. I was sort of thinking about something and then I saw the 222 and realized it's all like expanding now. But yeah, again, I guess, oh yeah, like easy targets, right? It's really easy to sit around and judge the people who are putting themselves out there, who are, you know, because we're the ones that get often, not always, and lots of love as well, but there's the two aspects, right? So, but then again, we never put ourselves in a position that we can't handle. So I'm fully aware that like this next phase for me is because I've needed all of these last few years, like I've needed all of this intense learning to set me up for the next phase because, well, vibration doesn't lie. I'm fully aware of like some of the stuff that I'm manifesting. I know, never doubt. Doubt is fear. Doubt is fear. Pity is fear as well. Pity is something that's coming up for me, like pity. Oh, poor blah blah blah. I'm like, no. That's a victimhood consciousness where none of us are, even like people in dire situations. I wouldn't go, and I used to, but I no longer because I've healed so much of my guilt. But when I see people in disparity, I feel compassion. I go immediately to solution. So what is it? How can I really be of service to these people right now? Not, oh, these poor, sad people. No human is poor, sad. We are all divine creators. We all have incredible fucking infinite power within us, and for us to perpetuate victimhood in any situation is not really a new paradigm, not a new frequency activity. We need to transform our disempowered energy. We have to transform our woundedness for ourselves. Pity is a control tool. So there we have it. We have a very profound fear of separation. Because obviously, if we're disconnected from our source, we don't exist. And that is the ultimate fear, right? So we do exist. We are connected to our source. We just have to remember that connection. And that can come through things like meditation, relaxation, conscious movement, yoga. talking to people like myself, watching stuff on YouTube, reading lots of books, and working one-to-one with healers and people that you resonate with. But let your life ebb and flow. Don't let yourself get hooked in to people, places, and things that make you feel shitty about yourself. It's just not that fun. It's more fun to give yourself permission to enjoy your life and work out those little bumps and cracks and obstacles along the way, because they do show up. But I can honestly say they probably make they probably make our lives a little bit more fun when we learn how to deal with our emotions, when we learn how to just live more in the flow, so that the obstacles become fun rather than like one fearful creation after another that we're constantly having to run away from and try to hide away from, right? Easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it depends on the person. I always look at forgiveness as self. Everything's self, isn't it? Like really the only person we ever need to forgive is ourselves. I can forgive myself for having a reaction. I can forgive myself for not always being some perfect human being, but there's nothing I can do if someone else wants to perceive me in their own way, right? So my own self-forgiveness is the light of the way. You're amazing. Love you too. Take care. Bye.